Where there is disagreement is whether new jobs will come along to replace the old ones. In the past, they have, and they eventually led to higher standards of living. But some people think that this time it's different. Nick Srnicek is a lecturer at King's College London and co-author of Inventing the Future.
I think this argument that history shows we always create new jobs, it's a really common argument, and I think they're right that, history does show that, but I think there's a number of important caveats to that. The first one is when we look at sort of the initial wave of automation in the late 1800s or so, we do see jobs come about eventually to replace the lost jobs in agriculture, but they take about 40 years to arrive. So we have a period of about 40 years where there's mass poverty, there's a huge amount of slums within places like London. It's just not very good for workers. So in the medium term, I would expect maybe some jobs to arise, but this still doesn't sort of get to the heart of the matter with, short term. What should we expect over the next decade or two? The other aspect is these historical sort of precedents, they also had a different social context. And I think that's really important to note as well. So when we look at, say, the early 1900s, we have machines taking jobs, but we also have a workers' movement which is aiming to reduce the working week. So this effectively means that, yes, there's less work to be done, but everybody is sort of equally doing less work. So we've got a move from a 60-hour work week down to about a 40-hour work week in most places. And this effectively means that the impacts of automation aren't felt because we are reducing the working week. Now, when we look at post-World War II era, again, we see automation taking jobs, but we also see high levels of employment, good wage growth, good productivity growth. But what's also happening there is that we have a unique situation in the history of capitalism where we've got governments which are committed to a full employment policies. So they're doing all sorts of efforts to make sure that there are sufficient jobs for people. We've also got half of the population, women, now working in the home rather than in the workplace. So this is, half the population isn't looking for a job. The other aspect is that those periods of high economic growth were unique. We haven't seen them since, and I highly doubt that we're going to see them again. So when we look today, we're missing a movement for a shorter working week. We're missing a period of high growth. Instead, we've got secular stagnation. And we're also missing governments being committed to full employment policies. Instead, most governments today are committed to austerity and cutting down government debt rather than trying to get more and more jobs for people. So I think the sort of looking at history is good, but I think we also need to take into account the fact that a lot of the things which enabled that no longer exist.